Some states require NIL representatives, aka agents, to have surety bonds to represent the athletes. Other states, you just have to fill out a paperwork and pay a fee to the state and you're good to go. What's up, everybody? It's Trey Smith with College Game Time, back at you with another College Game Time YouTube video. Today, I'm going to be talking about these NIL collectives and what could really put handcuffs on them. But before I do that, please hit that like and subscribe button, share it with a friend, leave a comment at the end, and if you're feeling generous, go ahead and leave me a super thanks. Your generosity is very much appreciated. Okay, let's get into this, because recently Deion Sanders was very adamant about his support for NIL, but his disdain for NIL collectives. Watch this.
NIL is not a problem with me. Collectives are. Let's talk about NIL. Name, image, and likeness. What kid out of let's just take it to high school, is notable enough that a CEO of a major company is going to lay it on the line for a kid that ain't nobody know?
Not many.
So it's not NIL. Collectives, you could be Tom, Dick, Harry, and Larry, and you just put a bag together, boosters or whatever, whoever does it, and try to solicit these kids to come to your university. Who is that helping?
So as you can see, there's something about these collectives that if you really start to pull the layers back, that is where the problem with NIL comes in, along with the lack of continuity as it pertains to laws, rules, and regulations. But let me back up, because let's go through a few questions first, and then we can sort of pinpoint what the solution to this problem is. The first question is, what is an NIL collective? I know a lot of you probably watching this video, you run around, you get on YouTube comments and social media, and you get in these conversations and debates with people, and you throw that word collective around, but I think there's people running around saying it that they don't even really know what it means or what it is. They know it has to do with groups of people and money and da-da-da-da-da, but okay, so in short, an NIL collective is simply a third party, a collective of boosters, fans, and friends of the program who pool their money together in order to pay athletes under the name, image, and likeness laws, NIL. But here's some things to know about NIL that you might, from seeing how the landscape functions and operates, you may not even know, because there are some regulations and rules around it. It's just we don't really talk about it because a lot of times it doesn't look like they're evidently being put into practice. And so the first thing is you can't pay players for play. Under NIL, a player cannot receive pay for play. You cannot pay players to attend a certain school. See, some of you thought these collectives were luring kids in and paying them to go to a particular school. They legally can't do that. Now, I'm about to tell you what they're doing, what their loophole and workaround is, depending on what state they're in order to essentially get that task accomplished. But legally on paper, they can't pay for play and they can't pay a kid to attend a particular school. And then every payment requires a deliverable from the athlete. In other words, there has to be a social media post. There has to be an appearance. There has to be some sort of advertisement, something the player has to do, not related to athletics, not related to their performance, but is exclusively related to that place of business or that collective. So there has to be a deliverable. So the three things to make sure you understand: you can't have pay for play, you can't pay to attend a school, and you have to have a deliverable that the athlete has to accomplish in order to receive payment legally and keep their eligibility under the NIL. So with all that being said, then, how do the collectives operate? Because they're obviously the ones that are pulling the strings on everything. They're why the transfer portal is just exploding every single year. And it always comes up in discussions around the transfer portal is the NIL, and they're bidding on kids and they're outbidding. It's bidding wars and it's free agency and it's this, that, and the other. Well, legally, none of these collectives can pay kids to attend a university. So what are they doing to ensure that, one, they stay above board, but two, they get the kid to come to the university that they represent? Well, what they're doing is they're drawing up contracts. They're executing contracts that are requiring players to complete deliverables appearances at locations that are in a close vicinity to the campus that collective represents. So for example, if I go to the University of Arkansas, then all of my appearances are going to be right there in that Fayetteville vicinity around the campus, Dixon Street, wherever. And the reason why they do that is so that if a kid hops in the portal and decides, oh, I'm going to transfer to USC because I can get better NIL money there. Well, by law, if that kid still makes his appearances in Arkansas, in Northwest Arkansas, while attending USC, he should still get paid. However, what 18 or 19-year-old kid is able to just hop on a private jet to fly from Southern California to Northwest Arkansas on a Tuesday to make an appearance to get $1,500? Now, hey, if the appearance is going to get him $50,000, maybe you figure that out. But I'm just saying they execute the contracts that way. That way, knowing the kid, if they transfer, they're not going to be able to make those appearances, and then they have a breach of contract, and then they no longer have to pay. So that's kind of the loophole in the workaround in order to ensure that kids attend the campus that they represent. Now, what's making this so chaotic? Well, you have to start with the lawmakers. So every state has their own set of NIL rules and regulations. So for example, some states you can get paid off NIL in high school. Some states you can't. Some states require NIL representatives, aka agents, to have surety bonds to represent the athletes. Other states, you just have to fill out a paperwork and pay a fee to the state and you're good to go. So let's go here for a second. Imagine you have a kid attending OU, 5-star lineman or 5-star skill player. And all of a sudden that player's uncle or cousin or someone that's been a part of that kid's life for his whole life decides he wants to be his representative. Well, in Oklahoma, you have to have a surety bond to represent players for NIL. And it's not the player's home state, it's where they're playing. So now it's like, okay, well, Uncle whoever, Uncle Joe, doesn't know nothing about surety bonds or anything like that, but he knows, hey, if my kid goes to play somewhere in the state of South Carolina, all I got to do is fill out some paperwork, file it with the state, and pay a fee, and I'm good to go to represent him. So, hey, why don't you hop in the portal, 5-star nephew, transfer over to Clemson, or well, it probably wouldn't be Clemson because Dabo doesn't use the portal. So transfer over to South Carolina. I'll fill out the paperwork, and now I'll represent you. That's just like a very in-home type of reality right now with the way the laws are so different from state to state that could influence a kid to get in the portal. Think about that. There's kids right now, like they're getting in the portal, making these decisions based on that example I just gave you. It has nothing to do with the sport. It has nothing to do with the, excuse me. It has nothing to do with their coaches, but it has everything to do with what the voices, the closest voices in their lives are saying. And it's because there's no continuity amongst states. So now you have a kid leaving a state that requires a surety bond in order to play in a state that doesn't, simply so a family member can represent them. Okay, that's just a small example of why we're seeing what we're seeing in the college football landscape right now. But then not only do from state to state, but then the campuses within each state have their own set of compliances. So Texas A&M, Baylor, TCU, in theory, underneath the Texas NIL umbrella, the state of Texas's NIL laws umbrella, they could all have their own set of compliances. So the problem is when you have this much autonomy amongst entities and institutions that ultimately have to play on the same playing field, that's a recipe for disaster. Okay, that's why Nick Saban is going up to Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., lobbying for federal regulations around this NIL stuff. He wants the federal government to get involved and put some federal regulations in place simply because right now it's so wide open. And when you have this much autonomy from state to state, that is what allows people like the collectives and agents to find every possible loophole. Maybe not even so much agents as much as these collectives and these boosters to find every possible loophole to still do things above board. But hey, in one state, it looked above board looks a little different than it does in another state. And when all these states have to compete against each other on the same playing field, that's when you start to have, unfairness within the game, and when you don't, or a lack of integrity within the game. And so that's kind of in a nutshell, what's going on with NIL and why the collectives are so, in my opinion, somewhat destructive as it pertains to the original intent behind what NIL was supposed to accomplish. If you think back to, that's kind of what Deion Sanders was saying in that clip at the top of the video. Now, what's the solution? What can limit these NIL collectives' ability to bend the rules? Well, I've kind of alluded to it already, but the first thing is federal regulations. So every state's on the same playing field, lawmaker-wise. And then 2, the IRS. So I don't know if you know this, but Ross Dellinger recently released a report on Sports Illustrated referring to the IRS essentially knocking down the notion that donors to collectives could write that money off on their taxes. That's going to be a hit to these collectives, because now Johnny Billionaire, who's donating a few mil a year, thinking on the back end he's going to be able to write that money off, can't write that money off now. Oh, he's going to think a little bit more about what he puts into that pot. So I think once we get some federal regulations, if we get some federal regulations, and then the IRS digging its heels in on what it's recently announced as it pertains to the tax write-off situation with donors to collectives, I think you could start to see the influence of the NIL collectives. Let me say it this way. Their influence to bend the rules could decrease. And then now maybe we can get the NIL infrastructure into a place where it's doing what it was designed to do, which is compensate student athletes for their hard work and utilizing their name, image, and likeness. So I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comments. Leave me something. Make sure to like and subscribe. And that's it for me today.